A very good afternoon to you. This is your Daytime Update. Let's discuss now the political implications of Norma Gigaba's testimony. I'm joined now by Mr. Matlala Setlhalogile, political risk analyst. Mr. Matlala Setlhalogile, good to have you with us this afternoon. We've just heard Norma Gigaba concluding the part of her testimony at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. There's still the cross-examination that is going to be happening, as now leave to appeal has been granted to her estranged husband. But in not only this appearance at the commission, but her previous appearance, as well as the appearances that she's had on different media platforms, talking about really intimate details regarding the relationship of Malusi Gigaba and the Guptas. What impact is this likely to have on Mr. Gigaba, as well as the political ramifications thereof?
Thanks, Thami, for having me. I think firstly, we need to assess what are the implications of Norma Gigaba's testimony in terms of what do they mean. I think her testimony highlights chiefly two things. Firstly, it highlights the structure, the fact that the state capture project was a well-organized, networked structure, because if you've been paying close attention, you'd realize that it paints a picture of patron-client relationships that existed. And these patron-client relationships are not isolated. There was a network of them. But in this patron-client relationship that she paints, there's an individual who's regarded as a patron. This is where the authority and the power and the influence flows from. The likes of Malusi Gigabas were what we can refer to as clients in this kind of relationship. Look, Malusi did not have the necessary influence and authority to advance state capture, but he could play a pivotal role in facilitating the capture of the state. And this, how he was managed to be recruited in this process, was through the gratification of gifts that Norma Gigaba has detailed. So firstly, it indicates the network structure and the structural and organization of the state capture project. Secondly, it details the conscious deficits that exist within the ANC. You know, in a society where celebrity politics have engulfed our society or political systems, Malusi Gigaba is one of those people that we could say he fell victim to this phenomenon of celebrity politics. Remember, the ascendance of Malusi Gigaba within the ranks of the ANC were because of his political activism and political deeds. The reward for that was a ministerial office. But once he ascended to this ministerial office, he had so much authority, legal rational authority, because the laws actually gave him authority to change the lives of society. But because there's an element of conscious deficit, once Malusi Gigaba ascended to that kind of role, he was now swallowed by the celebrity aspect of celebrity politics, which later came in the form of his heightened crass materialism. I mean, Norma Gigaba speaks of over 200 suits, speaks of trips to Dubai, and all sorts of crass materialism. In essence, Malusi Gigaba ascended to this role not to advance the interests of society at large, or at least the people that the ANC seeks to represent, but he actually sold his soul for crass materialism. What does that is, it has an impact now on the ANC as a party. It reveals the lack of consciousness within the public representatives of the ANC. And that might give rise to what we're already seeing in the South African spectrum of politics, of anti-politics, where people have lost faith in the established political systems, in this case being political parties. Thank you.
A really in-depth analysis there, Matlala. And I want to question you on this, because my main question was really about the impact that this will have on Malusi Gigaba, at one point really a blue-eyed boy, as the leader of the ANC Youth League, and then also being a member of parliament, and at some point really touted as a potential next presidential candidate. How does this testimony bode for him and his political career? Is there any chance of resuscitation for him and perhaps a return?
Thami, look, I do acknowledge that South Africa is alive with possibilities, but in the case of Malusi Gigaba, there's 0 to none chances of a political career resuscitation. As I indicated earlier, that Malusi, at least based on the testimony given by his estranged wife, suffers a consciousness deficit. And for him to reclaim his spot as the blue-eyed boy, it's going to be impossible. For people to associate with him, especially people who still want to have political futures, it's going to be very difficult, and I don't see it happening.
You spoke about the existence of an organized structure. And as you were speaking, it's quite clear from the testimonies that we've heard from the Zondo Commission that it is not just the Guptas. There are other relationships that have existed with the likes of Bosasa, where these patron-client relationships, as you term them, exist as well. What does this say about the African National Congress leadership, the members of parliament that we have, those who are in positions of power? Because Malusi Gigaba is just one. There's so many that have come out from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. How do these type of testimonies bode for the party and its leadership?
Look, Thami, I think in as far as Malusi Gigaba is concerned, it speaks directly to the Guptas. I think the main reason why the Zondo Commission was established, if you remember very well. But other instances such as Bosasa indicate how corruption, or rather lack of ethical and moral standards within the ANC are so proliferated. The ANC's value system has long collapsed. The party has acknowledged actually that they need to advance organizational renewal. This renewal is based on what they call the decade of the cadre, meaning the kind of people that they want to have as ANC members, the kind of people that they want to see being ANC leaders. This is an acknowledgement in itself that the kind of leadership that they use currently does not meet certain requirements, and the party therefore needs a strong overhaul of its value system. Look, the different testimonies about captures at different levels, departments, SOEs, shows a widespread and embedded culture of corruption that speaks directly to the value system of the ANC.
Let's talk about organs of state being used for personal gain or to progress personal agendas. The arrest of Norma Gigaba by the police and her detention has been ruled as unlawful. We've also heard Norma Gigaba talking about the hawks coming into her home and getting her to hand over her electronics, her cell phones, her iPads, etc. What does this say about the use of state organs for the advancement of personal agenda? What does this testimony say about that?
I think that kind of sums up why we have the State Capture Commission. Remember, this public institutions were utilized to advance self-interest. It speaks directly to the lack of institutional integrity that has characterized our public institutions in South Africa. Remember that even though Malusi Gigaba does no longer hold any office of authority in legal terms, he still wields some form of political influence in certain corners of this country and in society. This is a clear example that institutions that lack integrity, and this integrity talks about the manner in which these public institutions are managed, their value system, their ethic and moral standards. If they lack in those things, they are open to this kind of influences. Malusi Gigaba, utilizing state resources to settle his domestic disputes. is just an indication, or at least a macrocosm of what essentially happened in the bigger state capture project. Essentially what happened here, it was a clique of individuals who, accessed weak public institutions to advance their narrow self-interest. What Malusi did is in no way different to what the bigger state capture problem was.
Could Norma Mngoma, Norma Gigaba's testimony lead to further investigation into Malusi Gigaba, as well as the role that he played as minister? We have seen instances, for example, where dereliction of duty has been put upon the tables of those who were in power who did not adequately do the prescribed jobs that they were there to do. Could we see this going any further for Malusi Gigaba in this instance, or is this not enough?
I think, remember, what comes out of the State Capture Commission will be packaged into a commission report that will be shared with the president and ultimately shared with law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies will assess the merits of cases that ought to be pursued. And based on besides Norma Gigaba's testimony, there are other testimonies, especially that of Mr. Vuyisile Kona, for instance, the former SAA CEO, acting CEO. He somehow places Malusi Gigaba through his former legal advisor that Norma said Malusi approached to assist the sister with credit bureau challenges. Look, it places Malusi Gigaba at the center of some of the activities, because Mr. Kona testified that it was actually Mr. Mahlangu who took him to Saxon World, the Gupta compound, first time. And when he reported that issue to Dudumieni was more excited about him being at the Gupta house rather than protecting the integrity of SAA. But with that said, certain testimonies places Malusi Gigaba at the center of the state capture project. Remember, this still includes the awarding of citizenship of the Guptas while he was still the Minister of Home Affairs. I don't see him escaping this one without any prosecutorial scrutiny.
Mr. Matlala Setlhalogile, thank you very much for your analysis this afternoon. Certainly, the State Capture Commission of Inquiry continues, and Malusi Gigaba will be back on the stand come 2 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you, sir, for your insight.